Coaches get sacked. They have a tenure, a project. If it works, it's good. But if it doesn't, they are sacked. And it's not a unique thing in football. But Xavi getting sacked should be talked about. It's not just any other sacking. Barca is not an average club. Xavi is not just any other manager. He captained the Barcelona team that won the treble. He played 767 games for that club, which is second highest. He has been one of the best midfielders ever to play the game and arguably the best midfielder that played for Barcelona. And you call him to manage your team when he was hesitant in the first place, when he agreed to join a club in a time when you are struggling not just financially but in other areas as well. Then somehow he wins the league in his first full season. Then you bring a sporting director who's not in the same page as Xavi. And when the team starts underperforming, the media starts putting pressure on him and you show no support. Then Xavi decides to leave saying that the team would be better with a new manager. Then instead of respecting his decision, you convince him to stay. Do all these public announcements, share pictures in the social media and celebrate everything only to fire him after a few days? And for what? Just because he casually said that Barca will need more time to rebuild, which was basically the truth. This whole situation is like a joke. It's like the club intentionally wants to make mockery out of their legend. And why would a club want to do that? I would understand if it were any manager whose playstyle is not suiting Barca and you decide to part ways. But Xavi, who's operating in such toxic environment, in a tight budget, playing the players from La Masia, their academy, and someone who understands your club, and this is how you treat him. I just felt bad for Xavi. Anyways, now let's try and understand why would Barca want to sack Xavi. And in the process, we'll also talk about how the club is operating right now. Now there are a couple of reasons which we'll get into, but the first is of course the press conference he gave in his match versus Almeria, which angered Laporta, and reportedly he didn't even travel back with the squad after the win. So what happened was, Xavi was asked how he plans to compete with Real Madrid with the squad they'll have next season. And Xavi basically said, the fans have to understand that we are not at the same situation like them. We don't operate with the same amount of money and we'll need more time to compete. And in my opinion, that's something which must be clear as water. What were you expecting him to say? That no, we have the best squad in the world and we are going to win the treble? I mean, I get that he could have juggled his words, maybe downplaying it a little bit, giving hopes to the fans for the next season. But in my opinion, he did not say anything that was out of line and offensive for Laporta. In his position, he could have easily elaborated on the financial struggles or questioned the sporting director's decisions. But he didn't do that and was not out of line in saying what he said. But still, that fueled Laporta, and that tells us something about the president, which is he wanted a different narrative in the media, a narrative like we will compete at the highest level, or we have a good squad, or maybe something like the president and the sporting director will help us create the best squad for next year. I guess he wanted Barca fans to feel good about the club right now, so his tenure, whatever he has done till now, looks good. Now thinking from Laporta's perspective, he can say that he pulled all the levers and brought the players to compete, and I get that. But Xavi also bought you the La Liga trophy in return. Then players like Dembele and Busquets left, and replacing them was never going to be easy, and the team was going to struggle. So I guess Laporta could have been a little more understanding of the situation. Also, I'm not sure, but I'm assuming that while Xavi agreed to continue in that meeting in Laporta's house, there would have been discussions around what narrative they want to put in the media, which would be supportive of Laporta's work as a president of this club. And this is our assumption here, but maybe Xavi deviated from that, because this whole season, when it came to media, Xavi was far from his best. He constantly said that Barca performed well and were deserving winners, when most of the times they were clearly not. Xavi this season took many red cards on the sidelines. Many a times he blamed referees when things went against them. It was like they wanted people to feel that Barca is in a good place, but because of many external factors going against them, they could not deliver on the pitch. And I would understand if Xavi does that once or twice, but when you have the same script after every bad performance, maybe it's coming from the higher-ups. And now, Xavi all of a sudden coming out and saying that there is a problem which is beyond the performance on the pitch and it will take some time to solve it, shows the president and the management in a bad light. Secondly, I think that this guy is also a reason why the management was disappointed with Xavi. See, Vitor Roque is not a signing that was brought in by Xavi's request. He was Deco's signing. He could have all the potential, but he lacked that Barca DNA, that know-how of how a Barca player operates. And Xavi wanted that to play the football he wanted. So when he starts benching one of the most talked about signings, which was brought in for a decent chunk of money while you were struggling financially, now that shows a bad image of how the club is being operated. Barca board would have ideally wanted Xavi to not only play Vitor but also get good performances out of him. And Xavi made it clear from the beginning that he's not the one who's going to do that. Now the third point. There were also some reports which said that Ter Stegen went behind Xavi's back and said this to the board members that some players are unhappy with Xavi, and I want to talk about this. So what happened was, there was a report from Barca Reservet that said that Ter Stegen complained to the Barca board that some of the squad members were not appreciative of Xavi calling out the players' mistakes. Now Ter Stegen has since come out and falsified the claims. You can see his tweet for yourself. He said that the story published by the Barca Reservet is false, and I believe Ter Stegen. Maybe it was a lie that media spread for their own benefit. But we have seen in the past that Barca themselves use some media houses to spread a false narrative which may benefit some members indirectly. Bartomeu's tenure had many stories of this kind. So there are chances that some people in the management wanted the fans to think that Xavi also had some problems in the dressing room, and if he leaves, it would be good. Now, no one can say for sure, but that can also be a possibility. Now, on the other side, I wonder if there was a problem in the dressing room and were some players actually unhappy. It is possible, and if that's true, then it makes sense to sack Xavi and bring in a new manager. But again, I believe that things like these comes out in the media. If Xavi was having a bust-up with the players, they could not hide that for long. Some kind of information would be leaked. But only complaints that came out was from Vitor Roque's agent, and that was that Xavi doesn't even talk to Vitor, which is also bad, but it's not like the whole dressing room hates Xavi. Okay, now Hansi Flick. He can be exciting, very exciting manager. He plays this style of football which is very physical, based on pressing, and is direct. He won the treble with Bayern with exceptional performances and is the same manager that gave Barca that famous defeat with a scoreline of 8-2. But that's about it. That basically is his CV in football. Yes, he managed Germany, but that was a disaster. His experience of being a coach of a top club is very limited. Initially, he was Joachim Löw's assistant manager in the German national team. Then he was the assistant manager of Niko Kovac when he was the Bayern manager, and the job was given to him when Kovac was sacked. Now the football he plays is very entertaining. It's basically a high-pressing style of football which requires strong physical players. And bar a few, there are not many players in Barca whom we can say is a top physical footballer. Also, I'm concerned about the talents that come out of Barca's academy, because players like Kubarsi, Lamine Yamal, Fermin Lopez are good and talented, and Xavi was interested in using them. But I'm not sure whether Hansi Flick will share the same feeling. Now, the internet says that Hansi Flick has been very excited for Barca's job, and it was the only club he wanted to manage. And that's a good sign, I guess. Maybe he have seen some players and have made a plan as to what he wants to do with them. But we'll have to wait and see. And in the meantime, Barca fans can be excited about him. But I have this feeling that Barca are playing with fire, because starting a new project with a very different kind of a manager at a time when you cannot afford to make many mistakes, I guess it's not the most ideal thing to do. And that's why I wanted Xavi to stay for long. Barca is not at their best place, and Xavi still had room for improvement and could have turned out to be a great manager in the long run. And I accept that he's far from the best right now, but he knew the club in and out. And unlike many other managers who would be attracted to manage Barca just because of his name and history, Xavi actually loved the club. Both Barca and Xavi could have made mistakes and improved together. But now it's gonna be a new chapter, and Football Ledger will be here to discuss what happens next. So like this video, share your thoughts, I'll respond to every single comment, and don't forget to subscribe. See you on the next video. Ciao.